Welcome to a violent edition of ARG Presents. I am General Amigo Aaron, joined alongside that ragtag raptalion, no account, Private the Brent.
Oh,
Would you get that over here?
sorry. Private the Brent, reporting for duty, ma'am.
My God, this war, we're doomed. So if you joined us last week, we spun the wheel, but we did not make the deal. The deal was made by our good friends in chat.
Yes.
And they chose a subject for this week's ARG Presents. And the subject they chose, Brent, games about war.
War games.
That's
yes.
right. That's right. Now, that's a pretty broad topic, isn't it, Brent?
Not really, but yes.
Well, I mean, in terms of gameplay, there's about a million different ways you can play it. That war has been simulated on a video screen.
And what is it good for, really?
Well, good God. Anyway, we took a look at a couple. I mean, we went in very different directions, and by different, I mean Brent blew this topic up, crazy time, and then which I guess is appropriate for war games.
Wait a minute, mine is the most true to the term.
We'll see about that.
Oh my God,
I stay a little more down to earth. So, I thought before we went into our respective games, we would just chat a little bit about games of war that we've enjoyed throughout the years. Now, I'm going to start the ball rolling on this conversation.
Because I'm going to go a completely different...
Gee, there's a shock.
Different direction, I know.
When this category first came up, the very first game I thought about was one of the very first games I ever played, which was Combat on the Atari 2600.
I also thought of Combat.
Combat is a game, it's ingrained into my soul, into my psyche. It's a game that you played a ton back in the day because you didn't have anything else. It's a game that pits you against an opponent. You have to have an opponent in a battle of jets, biplanes, and tanks.
Yes.
Or multiple jets against one jet. You know, bouncy bullets, the whole 9 yards.
Yes. A lot of variety.
A game based on some of Atari's early coin-op offerings that were similar nature with the tank. So they already had the controls down. And it really was probably the first home console game that gave you those tank controls that became so famous. What was your opinion of Combat from back in the day?
Loved it. I love the ability to curve the bullets. I thought that was a great option that added a ton of strategy.
Plus the bouncing is fun.
I preferred the tanks over the jets and the planes.
I never played the big B-52 against the little fighters.
That was a good one if you were really above the skill level of your opponent.
Yeah, I suppose so. Still a lot of fun, and it's funny because that was of course the pack-in on so many Atari 2600s, and a game that's still real well known and well thought of, and it plays great. I remember sitting on your back porch after we got the ColecoVision working, and we had the Atari adapter thing stuck in. That's the first thing we tried out was Combat, and it was great. Do you have anything in your mind? When you think of war games aside from Combat, what was the first thing that popped into your head?
Remember, No Russian, which is a scene from the Call of Duty 2, where you are a secret agent infiltrating the Russians. And you are your task is to basically do a terrorist act on a Russian airport where you just go through and mow down all the civilians.
God.
Yeah, it was one of this, and this was before, a lot of modern day history, and it was so impactful on me. It was so disturbing. I tried to cheat that level about 100 different ways before I did it the right way.
Where did you play this at again?
This was on Xbox, modern consoles. But it encompassed for me the gritty, disturbing nature of war.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it is something that I won't go back and play the game now. But and most people, when you hear the Call of Duty games, they think about the multiplayer stuff. And in modern times, there is no single-player game. But this was while they were still writing compelling stories for the single-player versions of the game. And that was one of the most incredible scenes. Another scene from the same series, different game, is you are in a city that has a nuke dropped on it, and you live out the final minutes of being hit with the radiation and going through the slow, agonizing death.
You know, you're really bringing me down here.
I'm just telling you, man.
Can't you pick something a little less freaking volatile?
It's war, man. It's war. And these are their...
Why did I ask you this?
They're compelling scenes that, to me, is one of the things that really elevates video games above just games and puts it into art.
Yeah. I do remember. I think it was called I think maybe the original Call of Duty, or it could have been Medal of Honor. It was one of those early, first-person shooter games. But they had you storm the beach, yes. Normandy.
Yeah, that's another one.
World War II, and I mean, literally, you just got lucky if you made it on the beach.
Yeah,
and it did bring it home. That what a horrible time that was.
It really. And that shows the gamut of video games and what they've done with the subject of war.
Yeah,
you have your gritty realism that really, I mean, if you just play the game and you don't think about it, it's just a game. But if you sit there and think, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It pulls you in, and then you've got the complete opposite, hokey side of war, where you're, carving tank bullets and you're controlling 3 planes at once, or you're lobbing grenades in like a Worms type game.
Well, it's funny. Worms is a good example of a war game that is a war on a silly low end scale. That's a lot of fun. We also recently did Scorched Tanks on the Amiga, very similar game.
Yes.
The lob artillery games. Those are always a lot of fun to play, and those were sort of world doesn't always have to be super incredibly brutal like you portrayed it.
Well, like I said, that video games does an excellent job of showing, not showing the brutal side of war and then fantasizing the fun part of war.
I think some games do that. I think a lot of games just sort of glorify it.
Yeah, certainly.
The modern warfares and stuff in the war just go out and just go crazy. It is what it is. I don't play them. It's not because I'm not politically opposed to them or whatever. But it is what it is.
And then you also have the games, which is sort of more geared to what I picked this week, like Advance Wars for the DS, where it's turn-based strategy. It takes a real hard look at advancing your units and putting support where it needs to be and laying down fire where it needs to be.
That's a game I can never get into. I will say when it comes to those sort of strategy games, which was another way you could have went.
Absolutely.
Command and Conquer is one I played, and Command and Conquer Red Alert, and I even almost thought about picking that Command and Conquer first-person shooter, like player versus player game, which I always thought was a lot of fun. And I know it was mostly hated, but I always enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun to get with a bunch of people together and play. Another war-based game that I really enjoyed, I've talked about it many times, so I'm going to talk about it again, was Wings on the Amiga.
Absolutely.
You get a good feel for what it was like down in the hardened areas of World War I. I think it does a good job of giving you some of the glory of the battle, along with some of the drudgery of the battle.
Sure, and it runs off that narrative rather than the visual spectacle of it. It really drives that narrative home, and it gets you to really feel what your character's feeling.
Yeah,
I think it does an excellent job.
It's very simple the way they do it. It's funny that in the remake they added voiceovers to the journal. They do a good job too. The remake I thought I was pretty impressed with it. Let's talk about space war stuff. Now that's another angle we could have.
StarCraft 2, man.
StarCraft. Now I never played StarCraft 2, but I know you loved it. What was the appeal of that game?
Well, that was a whole lot of more control your units, move, tactical. You've also got your Star Controls, where are more arcadey, but there is some, when you play the actual game, there's certainly strategy in that
which I never do. I always just fight the battle.
Sure, but if you play the actual game, it has a lot of strategy involved of where you put your troops, how you spend your resources, what planets you try to take. I mean, that's really good too.
Now let's talk about some war-related games, like your Combat School. Or you've got stuff like...
you definitely have to explain what Combat School is, because a lot of people haven't played that.
I know you love that one, didn't you?
Combat School is the fun and play style of track and field, but paired with a combat. You're in a basic training for combat school.
Yeah,
and it has sort of that kind of feel. And the end of that is kind of topsy-turvy from the rest of the game because you're running obstacle courses, you're doing target practice on like little robots, you're rowing boats, crap like that. And then the last stage of that game, you're trying to save a hostage. That's the conclusion of that game.
It's like Police Academy. You're at the academy, all of a sudden it becomes all too real at the very end of it. Now, what about a game? And let's go ahead and I'd say these are war games. What about games like, say, your Heavy Barrel, your Contras, that sort of thing?
That's to me, that's not a war game because
I mean, you are in the midst of a war.
But those are more you versus the world games,
right?
And I don't really classify those as war games because you don't. I mean, you are your own faction,
right?
As opposed to being
you're representing
bigger.
Somebody in the faction.
Sort of, I guess.
You're just a lone rogue out there killing stuff.
Even games like Soldier of Fortune, which is the same vein, you feel you're a bit more of a collective, even though you're just a lone running gun.
Now, what about these games like these Tom Clancy games that were real popular back in the day? You got Rainbow Six, and you got and these squad based things. You ever get into those?
No, yeah, squad based. Those for me are less war games as well. They're I guess it's just your side versus a terroristic side. And the terroristic side is nameless, faceless. They're just the bad guys.
Right.
It's sort of borderline type of war games for me.
Right.
But I do enjoy those. The problem with those is you have to play a lot of them to get good at them. And when you get good at them is when they really become fun.
Right.
Which I'm not someone who is going to sit down because I don't have the people who enjoy those type of games as well. So I don't really have a crew to run with those. Mm-hmm. So we don't play them quite as often.
Do you recall, have you ever played any of these MMO war games, like your Battlefields? I know that's sort of technically. Well, what did you or your Star Wars as well? The Star Wars battle game.
Sure.
Battlefront, I believe it was called.
I play all those.
Yeah.
Those are certainly more geared towards war games because it is definitely faction versus faction. In my opinion, one of my favorite of those is one of the very first ones, which was Battlefield 1942.
Yeah.
Where you could get in all the different. I mean, all these evolve.
Can you not do that anymore? Where you get all the vehicles and fly the boats or fly the boats? Can you fly those boats? That may be why I don't go to war right there.
I'm gonna think there's a lot of reasons. But those games. I do feel that those are a war-based game because you are faction versus factions, and you have different roles that you can fill.
Yeah.
I really enjoy those. Do you play those at all?
I played the original 1942. I believe there was also a Battlefield Vietnam.
Yes.
I played that.
It was horrible.
It wasn't the best.
It was bad.
And that would be. I guess that would be more of a, instead of a war game, that would be a police action game. If you're here in the States, since they never actually declared that a war. But they're okay. They're fun. They're dumb and stupid fun. I guess you could get real good at them. But those games, those run around and shoot the opponent games, you can name any of them. The Halos, the Battlefields. I'm not good enough at them to have any fun because I just instantly get super murdered every time I go out there. Just as a sidebar, I just thought this was interesting. Last night, Boat had his friend from Korea over here.
Yes.
And just to see the arcade. And we were playing, and we were talking about military service. And he was telling me that because in Korea, military service is mandatory.
Yeah, it's required for X amount of years.
But here's something he told me that I never considered. He said the difference between the United States and Korea is that your military service here, people having been in it, is held in much greater esteem than it is in Korea.
And sure, because everyone goes through it.
Well, I thought about it, and I thought to myself, I guess that's because over in Korea you have no choice in the matter. You go in, whereas here you are making a conscious decision to go.
We're a voluntary
to put yourself
army.
at risk. Right. I still thought it was interesting. I never would have occurred to me about that, But and by the way, Boat's pal was a real good hand at some King of Fighters, I might add.
Something I would not consider a war game.
we had a good time. Now, just before we move along to our main games, do you have an all-time favorite war game aside from And please, something that's not hideously depressing.
No, it would be the second Call of Duty, Advanced Warfare. That as a war game, even though it is you're taking the role of a single soldier type game.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite. Of the, you control mass amounts and make strategic decisions. I would say Age of Empires 2 is my favorite.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one, yeah.
It just, for that, I think they really streamlined the building process and the techs. There are many, many, many different ways to approach that game. It's not like a Civilization, where Civilization is so heavy. This is a lot lighter and I think more approachable.
Now, do you have a war game that you absolutely can't stand?
Oh gosh,
I mean, one that's just the dirt worst.
The modern Battlefield type games, where they're using modern experimental tech, and I don't mean fantasy tech as in like mechs and stuff like that, because mech warriors are certainly war games.
There's a new mech game coming out. I believe it's 5, and I was reading about it, and it looks great. We both had a more than a cup of coffee with Mech Warrior 2.
Yes.
And the Mercs and all that.
Yes.
All that. We love those. I actually considered doing a Mech Warrior game, but I think we'll save those for a show where we just do exclusive mech games, and that'd be kind of fun.
And then, but like I was saying, those I enjoy, because those are so fantasy. I enjoy them.
Yeah.
It's the ones that are using modern, experimental, possibly existing techs, like your Black Ops, your more modern games like that. I just don't enjoy.
I would say my favorite games, if I had to pick 2, and we mentioned both, one would be Wings, and one would be the Worms World Party. I think it's a great game, if you consider that a war game. My least favorite, that I'm just right off the top of my head, and this is an unpopular opinion, and me and Bo have tried to figure this game out, but it's super popular in Europe, is North and South on the Amiga. I don't understand that game. We went out there and just got smoked trying to play this game, and we've never, ever figured it out. So maybe one of these days we'll wrap our head around it.
There you go.
So, with all that said, we were tasked with picking 2 games from the huge universe of games. And I'll lead the dance this week. Now, you know, sometimes we pick games we've never played, and sometimes we pick games we know very intimately.
Yes.
And we don't have a rule or anything. We
Nope.
just got to do what we want. And so, but I always like picking games that I don't know much about, you know, or have a cool name, as you know. This is a game, the game I picked, and I'll go ahead and say it was a Beachhead 2. I played the C64 version. There are multiple versions.
Yes.
The Dictator Strikes Back, I believe is the subtitle.
It is.
And I played this game it was back when it first came out. I mean, a long time ago. My buddy had it on his C64, and I was so impressed that time I played it. I was like, man, this is great. It had digitized sound.
Yep.
It had multiplayer, you know, and it was good multiplayer.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, now at the time I thought this, and so I haven't played it since. So this is, you know, and so the game came out long ago, in 1985.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, it's funny. I was either in 8th or 9th grade back in those days. I was a freshman or going into high school when this came out. So I probably would have played it when I was a freshman in high school. And I had a lasting impression on me because you know we didn't have a C64.
Correct.
And so when I think of C64 games, I only have a really good memory of the ones that other people had. My friend Hose had one. My friend Rich had one as well. And so those are the games I remember. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to try something that I remember fondly and see how it holds up. Now, I am aware that there was a Beachhead 1, and the Beachhead 1 is a game of some renown. In fact, some people prefer it.
It's a different game.
But I never played Beachhead 1. I only played the second one. So I went ahead and I thought, you know, when I thought about a war game, I wanted something that was I wanted something that was sort of violent, but I didn't want something where I was going to cry when I finished it, like your games. You know, so I selected, as I said, Beachhead 2, The Dictator Strikes Back. Again, released in 1985. It was done by Access Software. Now, there's a name we've explored a few times on the Amigos. Access Software made a lot of interesting games, including the the Leaderboard Golf series.
Yeah, yep.
And they were known for their really cool digitized sound technology that they implemented in a lot of their games. If you recall in World Class the Brent, it's the old, he hit the tree, Jim.
Yes.
That sort of thing. And this game, it comes on hard with the digitized sound. And that's one of the things I remembered about it, which we'll get into that in a moment. Now, this game was created by the Carvers, Bruce and Roger Carver. This game was pretty well regarded back when it was released. Again, I read a lot of reviews that said today they like the first one better, but I don't have a base, so maybe one of these days we'll try the first one. So this also came out on the Spectrum and the Amstrad. Now, I did not see the Spectrum version. I think it came out on the Atari as well, 8-bit.
Yeah.
I didn't see the Spectrum version, but I did have a quick look at the Amstrad version. I was expecting really awesome gameplay. I'd say the Amstrad version I didn't think looked very good at all. It was a lot faster, but I thought it was a lot uglier.
I thought the C64 looked by far the best.
Did you look at which ones did you look at?
I looked at I watched videos on the Amstrad and the Spectrum.
I mean, I would love to have an Amstrad too. We've got the Spectrum working now, so that was on the list. So, what is this game? Well, in the first game, apparently, you helped put down a dictator, and so now the dictator's he's not going to just sit there. They're dictators. Right. What they are is in their name. So what separates this game is it's 2-player pretty much for the most part for every level. You've got basically this game this is like the bar games of violent combat. That's what it reminds me of. If you ever played Accolade's bar games. So what's taking place here is basically infiltration of the dictator's
Stronghold.
area, right? And you're trying to go in there and with your soldiers and rescue these prisoners and get out, and then ultimately take out the dictator. So how do you do that? Well, the first level. Now, and I'm going to speak on all these levels, with the exception of, well, really all the levels have 2-player elements. So, and one person will play the dictator side, and one person plays the hero side, or the allies. So, on the first level, this is simple. If you're the dictator, you are a turret, a gun turret at the bottom of the screen. And all you have to do is shoot every good guy you see. Yep. The good guys are dropped out of airplanes that are coming over, paratrooper style. By the way, our grandfather was a paratrooper. Yeah. He had nothing good to say about it. He did not like it. They used to drop him in these paper jets or paper planes behind gliders behind enemy lines. He said he never was in one of these days. It didn't crash. But anyway, you're dropping these guys out of planes, and you sort of time when they come out.
Yeah, you control when they actually drop.
And then you drop in behind the walls. And your ultimate goal is to go down and blow up this gun turret. But basically, you're trying to get your troops through this series of walls and out past the gun. Okay. Again, the gun just shoots. So you're ducking behind these walls, and you're going to lose a ton of guys. Yeah. Okay, let's go there.
It just because the gun that they're using is not a little pea shooter. No. It is a brutal machine gun of death.
Yeah. And so as you drop these guys out, the guns are shooting at them in the air. Then they hit the ground, and whatever's left line this top set of walls. Yeah. And you can see these little dots behind it representing guys. All right, they're little dots like their little heads are peeking over. Then they take off running. And you're trying to gun them down. And so your strategy is, sadly, you have to sacrifice a guy to get a guy. Maybe sacrifice a couple guys to get a guy. And you can determine which way you're going to send them, with the joystick. And they come shooting out from behind the wall. And you try to get as many as you can through. And if you get close enough, you can throw a grenade, blow up the gun turret. Now,
which another one just replaces it. Right. But it gives you points. And that's
it makes you happy. It makes you feel joyous. Now, what do I like about this level? Well, a bunch of stuff. For starters, anywhere the gun shoots, it leaves a trail of bullet holes, basically. And so, I remember my buddy saying, watch this, and he was writing his name on the wall. I remember thinking to myself, I was like, this is so awesome. Wow, you can write your name in the game. But I know this sounds so...
And there was no... unlike modern games, I don't think there was ever a point where you shot one to make another one disappear. I think they all just... like in modern games, if you're shooting a bunch of bullet holes in the walls, eventually you shoot this one, and this one over here will disappear.
They stay the whole time. And that's at every level with the gun turret, they stay. So, Now you would think to yourself, how in God's name are the good guys going to get through this? Well, the gun turret, the turret is slow. Plus, you have to
left and right slow.
It doesn't just go left and right. You have to kind of aim up and down the arc of the bullets to determine how far they go. Like if you're shooting up in the air, you've got to have that thing shooting real high. And it's just a steady stream of fire, but you have to kind of hone in. It's slow. This is the advantage that the Allies had to get through the gun turret.
Which is not much of an advantage.
Now, thankfully, I had played as the dictator a bunch of times before, so I had knew what that was like. But because really, 2 players where this game shines.
Sure.
But the 1-player version,
it does okay.
It's good. So once you
3 difficulty levels.
The second thing about this first level that's awesome, this is sort of sprinkled through the whole game, are the sound effects. The gun's always going on. Now there is really no music in any of these levels, but the sound effects are a gun shooting off, and they sound good. But what's great is when you get a hit, the guy will go, ah, or he'll be like, medic!
Yeah.
I love the medic. That's great. And it's amazing how much...
there is no medic.
No. It's neat how much the sound added to the game. Much like World Class Leaderboard, those little nuggets of sound, they give you character. And this game plays, in a lot of ways, this reminds me of a Cinemaware game. It's very much like a very linear Cinemaware game where you're building almost like a movie as you go through.
Yes. Yep. So this is definitely the opening act of a movie.
When you finish the first level, you get scores, and score will be based on either side, like how many kills you got, how many guys got through, how many times you blew up the turret, stuff like that. And there's a dictator side and there's an ally side or a good guy side. After you get past this level here, the next level in the game is where these prisoners are trying to walk safely across the screen.
Very a la Operation Wolf.
What it reminded me of was Crossbow. A lot of Crossbow.
Same basic there.
The good guys in this one they have the gun turret, and the bad guys are trying to stop the prisoner from walking across the, I guess what is a prison yard.
Yeah, make their escape.
So what you've got to work with is, this reminds me also of the wet t-shirt contest at bar games quite a bit. Well, it does, because in that your girls are walking across the stage back and forth, and there are people up in the lights trying to dump water on them, stuff popping about the stage. That's what this is. As your guy slowly meanders across the screen, there are obstacles that come out to kill him. At the bottom of the screen is a truck with a gun mounted to the top of it. If he gets up on the guy, he'll shoot him and kill him. Then you've got this guy that will just pop up randomly in a trap door and jump out and get him. Now the trapdoor, the funny thing about this is the trapdoor can be anywhere in that guy's path.
Yeah.
And you'll see it sort of streak across the screen, and the door will, it'll stop in front of the guy, the door will pop open, and the guy will be like, hey!
I mean, you can jump out right up on the guy.
Right, so you have to
really be quick.
Then you've got a guy on this wall in the background. This again reminds me of the wet t-shirt contest. The guy will drop a rock or a stone or something.
Yeah, big smushy object.
He'll run over. Actually, he just sort of appears, and he drops it. You've got to shoot him. And then lastly, and most deadly, is a tank that's rolling towards the guy. This guy is like the Tiananmen Square guy. He's bravery beyond belief, because he's walking directly into the line of a tank. So it's your job with the gun, if you're the Allies, to try to shoot this stuff out of the way. Now, you can shoot the trapdoor guy just by shooting him. You can shoot the guy up on the stage. The guy on top of the wall. If you can just see the tippy of his head, you can still shoot that little tippy and kill him. You can shoot the gun truck, and you can shoot the tank. Again, the gimmick in this is the arc of that gun. Right, you have to have the arc right to hit the target, and these prisoners walk so painfully slow.
Yeah,
it is very similar to Crossbow, where you're trying to save this idiot family or whatever, or your adventurers from going across the screen.
Well, and the first stage is geared for the dictator to get a lot of points because he has the advantage, and this is definitely. And this is definitely geared for...
You don't think the dictator has the advantage in this level? You've got all that stuff to choose from, and you can use... If you're the dictator, you can actually pop the stuff out and use it.
Well, right. But I still think the player has the advantage because being in the gun turret is so powerful. And even if you don't rescue a bunch of guys, you're racking up points on everything you shoot.
When you get a guy out of this stage, you feel like a real stud.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you get 4 or 5, that's a lot.
So, and then, and something I should mention is when your guy gets ran over by the tank, the scream he gives out is top shelf.
It's pretty rough.
Now, I read the same people that did the audio in this, did the audio in Impossible Mission, stay a while, stay forever. And this is another, they had that classic when you shove that guy down the elevator shaft, you'd be like, this is what that reminds me of.
And
this guy gets crunched by this thing. Yeah, it's good.
Crazy clean audio.
It's real good. So then, of course, once you get however many prisoners across, you've got your summary screen that tells you what's going on.
Yeah.
So then you get to the third screen. Now, most of these games that have mini games in them, you can think to yourself, well, none of these games can stand on their own. This is the one exception. I think you could have probably made a full game just out of this third mission.
They already did. It's called River Raid.
Well, no, because this goes beyond River Raid. So the third mission is you trying to fly hostages out of enemy territory. So this is a shooting. This is a shoot 'em up, a shoot 'em up game where you run a helicopter. So at the beginning of this thing, it'll tell you how many hostages you've got, and you can load them on your plane. You can load however many you want. You can put 1, you can put 5, and then you take off. And the way to describe this best is think of a vertical Zaxxon. Is what this is. You control your chopper up and down, left and right, and you're ever going forward. So there's height. In how you drop and go up and down. You have to avoid obstacles or fly under bridges and stuff. That's if you're the good guys. If you're the bad guys, you control a tank will occasionally roll on the screen. You can kind of move it back and forth and shoot. And plus there are other, I guess you'd call them static targeting things that will automatically take care of business.
This is definitely the worst level for the other guy.
This one's a lot of fun, and I thought I was actually pretty good at this one. I did pretty well at this because I played a lot of Zaxxon back in the day. There's a lot of judging of height, and they've done a good job in this because the level's not long, but it's pretty detailed. There's cool bridges, and there's those things with the arm would come down to stop your car. There's buildings you can blow up for extra points. There's all kinds of weird windmills and turrets sticking up you can shoot. It's fun. If your chopper gets blown up or you run into something, all those hostages you lose that were in it. You have to go back and reload with some more hostages and then go again.
Make 3 passes.
I thought this was a good level, and like I said, I think this could have been fleshed out in a full game.
It was good if you're the good guys. If you're the dictator, it sucks because you don't always have something to do on screen.
It's still neat, and it's a lot of fun. I thought this was a good level. Again, good sound effects. I don't remember any major. Were there any actual audio cues on this?
I don't think there was any digitized stuff.
So, and again, you get a summary score to that one. Then you get to the final level. And again, this all builds like a movie. The final level, it's the Allied commander, the hero commander, against the evil dictator. And they're on opposing, almost like docks that set over this dark cave lake. And, I mean, this atmosphere is awesome. You're in a cave, there's water in it, you're on these opposing docks. And it's a knife fight. You're throwing knives at each other. This reminded me a little bit of the Three Stooges pie level in some ways. If you can move a stooge with the pie, you'd be in, because that's what it reminded me of. So this is simple. You or your opponent have to hit each other 4 times with the knife, and there are 9 rounds of knife tossing. So as you throw these, when you hit someone 4 times, they go and they tumble head over off the dock into the dark water below. Pretty awesome. Also, the dictator is a jerk who will occasionally go "You can't hurt me," and he'll he'll laugh. He does
the evil shtick.
I love it, and you can hurt him, and it's joyous to do so. It's a lot of fun. Again, I remember playing this level quite a bit. Back in the day, because me and my buddy the knife fighting is actually pretty fun. I think you can have a couple knives in the air, and you're throwing one knife, and then you're trying to guess where your opponent's going to, shamble. When these guys move, they literally just kind of it's a very cautious move. Let's put it that way. I don't know if the docks are slippery. I don't know what's happening, but they don't move real fast. They go pretty slow. But the knife fight is a lot of fun, and now 9 rounds of it or whatever, it maybe gets a little old. Maybe you cut that in half and you got some. Plus, what I would have done is not have you kill the guy after 4. Maybe you kill him after like 10 or something. You know, that way he dies once, but you watch the dictator die over and over.
Well, it's because of the point structure that the whole game is based on.
Right.
All of this leads up to who has the highest score after the 4 mini games.
Right.
And that's who actually wins the game.
Now, when you finish the knife fight, you get a final summary score page, and then it goes back to the main menu, which has got a rip-off picture of what I think was Blue Thunder, although it's Airwolf was more curvy. But if you ever saw the movie Blue Thunder, the chopper in it, that's what it looks like. There's a chopper picture on the main screen of this. It looks sort of like this. It's more like red than blue. And then it'll give you your final tally of your scores and tell you who won. I should mention there are 3 difficulty levels.
Yeah.
And you know they just increase speed.
They make the person you're not playing a lot better.
Right. Right.
Easy is too easy. Hard is too hard. Normal is really a fair place to put it.
Yeah. This game got real good scores, Brent. I mean, overall, it was pretty well received. Commodore Force gave it an 83, which I've never even heard of that magazine. I've never heard of a lot of these. Commodore Horizons gave it 6 out of 10. Commodore User gave it 4 out of 5. Home Computing Weekly, I love that, 5 out of 5. Your Commodore gave it 9 out of 10. Your Computer gave it 3 out of 5. They were really struggling for names. And Zap gave this an 1985 anyway. They gave it a 90%. So
those are pretty generous.
No, you didn't like it? What?
Well, I'll go over that in a second. Go ahead, get your overall opinion of the game as a whole package. What you think?
I love the game actually. When I went back and played it, I enjoyed it. Once you understand the controls, and they came back pretty quick. It was fun. I didn't get to play it 2-player this time. I wish I had, but it's one I'll go back to. I'm gonna get Bo to play it. Bo would love it. You know, I'm a sucker. I'm a big old sucker for the mini games, and I'm a big old sucker for like California game-based stuff. And so this was a unique take, a unique slant on that I enjoyed. I liked the audio. I thought the graphics were good. It told a story. Like I said, it was very Cinemaware-like. So I personally give it the thumbs up. I dug it.
Why don't you check for our user reviews, which I've heard we've got one in.
Okay.
Why I give my personal
Okay,
review
go ahead. What do you got?
I loved 3/4 of this game.
Let me guess. You didn't like the chopper level, did you?
No.
Okay.
I love the first stage. Probably the best stage in the game. Both for its audio, its visuals, its gameplay. I think the strategy between where you're sending your guys out and how you're sending them out, where you're dropping them for the plane drop, all that is amazing. I think it's great and well done. Mm-hmm. And even when you're using the turret, you have these choke points where everyone has to come out of, but you can't just sit there and bull a hole, because there will be occasionally people that come over the wall. So you have to be aware of that and take that into account. I think this is the best level in the game. It has the best strategy, the best balance.
It's widely known as a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah,
it is fun.
The second level, where you're trying to save the hostages, I think this is a really good level. I think the crossbow-like aspects of it are well done. I think it's fair to a point. I think that the hostages could move just a tad faster, but they're not so slow that it's unfair to the point where you can't ever rescue any of them. It's all about staying vigilant on what is ahead of the guy and just ignore the things that aren't going to hit him, because there are occasionally things that won't hit him. The third stage, the chopper stage, what I call the River Rage stage, because that's what it reminded me of the most. I think it's a lot of fun. I think there's not a lot of strategy here. I don't think the 2-player aspects of it are so important, because the dictator, his control, what he gets to take care of, is minimal. Yeah. It's really a single-player game, and that's why
that really is the one level that's like that.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of don't like it as much as the rest of the game. And then the knife throwing stage at the end of the game, it kills it for me. I hated it.
Why?
It is so out of character for the entire rest of the game. The rest of the game, it's faction versus faction. It's war versus war. Why have it?
This is the ultimate showdown.
No. And also, why are they throwing knives? you've been using guns and tanks and war choppers all the way up there, and then you have an unlimited supply of knives at the end of the game. It really was a huge turnoff for me. I think the controls for this stage are crap. You move so slow, and you have these jump and duck type elements.
You never use.
They're worthless. Absolutely worthless.
Again, that's reminds me of Three Stooges, where you can sort of duck down.
Yeah, and also having to play it over and over and over. One and done, and I might have not hated it quite so much, but it really brutalizes the game. It drops the rating for the game for me down to like a 6.
Wow.
Because when 3/4 of your game is good, then you get 3/4 of a score.
Well, I don't think I like the knife fighting. I think it's pretty fun.
And here's the other problem.
Sort of Tron.
Here's the other problem. You have the potential to score so many points on the knife throwing stages that it doesn't negate one of the other stages, but it really if you're good at that, you can be subpar at the rest of the game and still win, and I hate that.
Well, I think you would have more fun if you're playing that in 2-player. And I will say again, does it go on too long? Yes. There's a couple stages in this that probably could do with being a little bit shorter. And I will say this is where I think the pacing of a CinemaWare comes into play. If they'd have done this game, the ending would have been far. You don't want to see the guy get killed 20 times. Now, but I mean, they did this. It's like if you took a CinemaWare game and put it in like summer games.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what they did. They tried to do both. And really, this is the genre they picked doesn't necessarily do both well. But I think the knife throwing is okay. I thought it was fun. It's more fun with 2 players, but I remember playing it a lot back in the day, and it was fun. So let's talk about our user review for this game. Our good buddy Graham W. Hebke. Beachhead 2. I was first introduced to this game on the Apple II. Well, there you go. We didn't even mention the Apple II version.
I didn't know it had an Apple II version.
And it is a frantic 4-level game on that platform, and it's the same as C64, where you play against the computer or a buddy, allies versus dictators. Once you figure all the gameplay mechanics, you will find quite a lot of depth and strategy for an action game. The angle of the turret, the speed of a projectile, the height of a moving mine. Great audio samples on the C64 version. The Apple II version was more white noise than voice, but still recognizable. And I really love one-on-one knife throwing level at the end, especially in 2-player mode, which is what I just said. Graham gets an 8 out of 10. I'm going to agree with Graham. I looked this thing up on the eBay to see how it was going, and it's funny when you look these cartridges up, you never sort of what you're going to get.
Sure.
I did find this one listed. It was running about between $7 and $10 in the UK.
Wow, that's really cheap.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
I would say, would I pick this game up for $7? Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I like I said, I dug it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Now, just before we fold up on Beachhead, there was the original Beachhead, but I remember seeing a game in the arcade called Beachhead 2000, I believe it was 2002, and it was a virtual reality game. Yeah. It's sort of loosely based on this, and I think there was a PC version that was used from. Did you ever play that one?
I played the one in the arcade. It is, you control the turret and shoot people as they come up on the beach.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, it's an interesting experience. If you've got $1 and it's in your arcade, I would drop it in just to at least play it once. It's not something I really come back to. It's a little too physical of a game for what it actually gives you in return for me. If I'm going to get hot and sweaty,
about the VR game.
If I'm going to get hot and sweaty playing a game, I want to play something more that offers more.
The cabinet looked cooler than the actual game was. I thought the game was a dud. Yeah. So, with that in mind, let's turn our attentions to what you selected this week. So, bro, what is your game about war?
Well, I went the entire other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, you did.
Where you went light and fluffy. I went hard strategy with the Civilization series.
I don't think it went light and fluffy, but yeah.
Civilization, obviously a well-known game throughout the ages, but a lot of people don't know its roots, and that's something I want to talk about today before I get in the actual game.
Yeah.
Civilization started out in 1980 as a board game.
Okay.
And this was a board game that did so much that was unheard of at the time, with its tech trees and its trading and its backstabbery.
Backstabbering.
That's right. That's when you throw a knife and it hits the guy right in the back.
Ow.
Thank you. This is a game that when it came out, like I said, in 1980, this stuff hadn't been done before. Modern day Euros hadn't gotten to this point by a long shot. And this came out in the UK and was a big hit, and Avalon Hill picked it up and brought it to America. And it was a big hit over here in the 80s too, because it was something no one's ever done before. It was such a big hit, in fact, that Sid Meier and Bill Staley were playing it and said, you know what? We're going to make a video game about this. And it took them a while to get there, and many people tried before. This, like I said, this was a big thing. Other companies had tried to take Civilization, the board game, and make it into a video game, and it went off in different paths, and different series came from it. But it was Sid Meier's and Staley that really said, we've got it now. And they did. And they nailed it really, really well. The strategy and all behind it. The tech trees. And I did not know this, but Civilization, the video game, is credited for the tech tree aspect of video gaming. Which at 91, I think is a little late for that. But they do get credit. I don't think they get credit for being the first. I think they get credit for popularizing tech trees in video games, which has spread to all types of video games, not just strategy. I mean, you find them in your role-playing games, your MMOs. You find them in even your first-person shooters have tech trees now. So that's another feather in the cap, as it were. So in 1991, Civilization came to the computers. And if you've never played or heard of Civilization before, you take the role of a leader and you are dropped on a landmass that is supposed to be the planet Earth or a random landmass. And you start out as one, or some people have two settlers. And you settle a town and you use the land's resources to mine coal, grow food, increase your population. And as you're doing this, you research things. And I mean, you start way back in the BCs, where you don't have writing, you don't have money, you don't have husbandry to do your horses and stuff like that. So you are really starting with nothing. So it means you grow a little food, you gather a little resources, and you have to use what you have to manage both your social aspects, assuring your people have enough food. You have to satisfy your technology aspect of gaining these technologies. I mean, mathematics and stuff. You have to get everything. And you have to satisfy your military and bring up military forces to stop yourself from being attacked by other ventures, by barbarians on the lands. And you have to explore and grow. Because if you just stay one person and that one town gets attacked and destroyed, that's it, game's over. If you expand your empire, you get more resources, you can grow things faster, you can grow your technology faster, and that's the game. It's all about conquest, exploration of the world, and it takes you, like I said, from the beginning of technology all the way up to the space age, where you can actually win the game by getting into space first. So, wow, what a scope of a game. It's huge. It was unthought of, and that's all came because the board game had a similar type of strategy and growing and tech tree, and the game just took it and said, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it even better and even more.
Have you ever played the board game?
I have not played the 1980 version.
There's a newer version that came out.
I'm going to talk about that. So what's kind of funny with Civilization is came from a board game, became an awesome video game that has had many sequels. I think they're up to 7 now.
I like that now.
And some of those are split off into sub-packs. Like 4 has like dozens of expansions. So when you have something this popular, of course you're going to do things with it. And they made board games out of it. And I'm not talking 1 or 2 board games. There are literally dozens of board games and expansions based off of Civilization, the video game, which was based off of Civilization, the board game.
Yeah,
so it really came full circle. There's no way to go in depth with Civilization. It's impossible. There's so much to go into. We could literally talk for days about tech trees and units, because all of your armies have unique abilities and scores. And in the first Civilization, everything was just represented by squares, because that's what the game pieces for the board game were. You just moved squares around that represented your army, and the more squares you had, that was how strong your army was. And Civilization, the very first one, really took that visual aspect of it and said, that's what we're going to make our game. We're sliding squares around, and it really works. It really works. In fact, so much so that Civilization 2 and Civilization 3, I skipped. I still played the first Civilization game because I preferred the visual elements of the original game. Now, have you played any Civilization games?
It's funny. Of course I have, because me and Boat covered this on the Amigos, a while back, and for the Amiga. In fact, for this, to go back and look at this one, I went and looked at the PC version.
Yes.
Which is the one I was most familiar with. And since I just played the Amiga version, I thought I'd try to play the PC version. The Amiga version is better.
It is.
I think. But,
it is. It really is.
But I played the PC version a ton. And I remember, this is a side story. You know, I pirated this game back in the 90s. And this is one of the first games I remember getting the pirated version. I'm like, here we go, let's play, because this game is widely regarded. Threw it in, and without the documentation, you're boned. You got a 0% chance to know what's going on. So I remember having to go and find someone that owned the game, and I had to copy the whole manual. And by the time, and back in those days, you had to pay, you go to the library to pay for copies. Yes. You're paying a fortune. So, and I also destroyed the guy's book. So by the time I finished making all these copies and buying the disc and everything, I probably could have just went out and bought the game.
Yeah.
I remember thinking to myself, okay, I've stumbled onto something here. This is where you should go out and buy the game. I actually ended up owning it. I've got the Amiga version in there. But when this came out, I mean, I'd never seen anything quite like it, and it was a lot of fun to try out. I wasn't a board game guy back in those days, so this was pretty new world for me.
Sure.
And it is neat. It's like because you determine first you determine who you're going to play at the beginning, and you determine which path they're going to take. Are you going to go into metallurgy? Are you going to go into mining, or whatever the different paths are? And it's fun. And normally when I play these games, ironically, this is the war games, I try to avoid war at all costs whenever I can. But I know some people don't play that way. They play a lot more aggressively. And they try to smash everybody, which I'm guessing that's probably what you do.
Well, it really depends on who I'm playing with and against, where my starting location is. You have to kind of pick that stuff up on the fly.
Yeah, but I love this game. Back in the day, I mean, has it aged well? It's okay. It could be quicker. That's for sure.
It's a long game.
Yeah,
and the board game is a long game. And in fact, the board game version of the game this is based off of was widely criticized for being too long, because it was a 5, 6, 7 hour game.
And me and you have played games of that length before, yes. And that is a long time. But of course, with the computer, you can always come back. That's the good thing about it. And I can't imagine sitting down and playing this game in one setting. I remember sitting and playing it over a week. Maybe half hour, 40 minutes a day. You can, and depending on how well you did. I never actually launched into space. I will say that. But
I've played this game. I've played many versions of this game that from beginning to end. Most of my victories do come from conquest. Eventually, the thing with Civilization that is so remarkable is you don't have to win through that. You can win through several different means, and in fact, being able to do that gives a ton of replayability to a game that already has tons of replayability.
Yeah.
When you go down a tech tree, I mean, one time I might not do husbandry at all, so I don't have cavalry units, which really screws you later down the line. but it lets you focus on other things first.
Yeah.
And you can play like that.
Of course, the old standards, the best thing, the most fun thing for me is that when you roll your tanks up on these hunter-gatherers, and they're who never advanced, and you just smash the crap out of them. They try to charge you with a horse. He's like, nah.
That's the thing. I mean, if someone lags behind in their army, and they're still got, bows and spears as their main weapons, and you're coming across with jet fighters just mowing them down and stuff, it happens. Yeah. It's crazy, and it happens. So a few aspects of this I want to touch on that I don't think get enough attention for these games. Since we can't go into depth on the game itself because it is so complicated, I want to take a second and talk about Bob Steely. Everyone knows this as Sid Meier's Civilization, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Sid. He is an amazing developer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but a lot of people don't know that Bob Steely exists. And Bob Steely is the co-author of Civilization. He is the person who made Microprose, the developer studio that eventually published all this. He was someone that would sit down with Sid Meier's and they would play games. And he was a gamer and Sid Meier's was a programmer. And they would say, you know what? You're really good at this game. I know how this game works. And that's how they made their games. They said, we want skill to be important, and we want knowledge to be important. And with that in mind, that's how they were able to really tackle the Civilization board game to make it into a game after so many other people failed, is because they had these two different perspectives on the project. And since his name isn't in the title, a lot of people don't know Phil Steely was ever a part of this, but he was. And he left the company and founded another gaming company down the line and sold that and made a bunch of money. And he was independent's wealthy for pretty much all his life.
Must be nice.
Yeah, and he's still around today and he's ran soccer teams. He's bought and sold soccer teams, I should say. He is currently running what is called the iEntertainment Network. He also does a ton of stuff with the military. He's in with that kind of crowd. So, Bob Steely, thumbs up to you, man. You did a lot without taking a lot of credit, and that's very noteworthy to me.
Is the check in the mail?
Something else with Civilization is how broad a spectrum it was played on. When this game originally came out, it was on DOS, so way back in the day. And it also came out on Windows. Came out on the Amiga, the Macintosh, the Atari ST, the Sega Saturn, the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation, and the thing I want to highlight today, the N-Gage.
Yeah.
That's right. This game had a port to the N-Gage. It came out in MS-DOS in 1991. It came out on the N-Gage in 2006.
A little late.
15 years. Sequels had already been made before it made it to the N-Gage. But this Civilization is not a port like most of the others. This is its own kind of squished together Civilization. It has more aspects of Civilization 2 and 3 in graphics, tech tree, everything else than it does in its namesake of Civilization. However, it is considered the last Civilization game because it was the last one to carry its name and not something else. Also, this is the last N-Gage game that was ever made.
Really?
This is the swan song for the N-Gage.
You should probably explain what the N-Gage is to the uninformed.
That's fair. The N-Gage was a handheld gaming system, portable phone hybrid. And I don't mean like smartphones today where you've got a screen and you can kind of do everything. I mean like imagine a Game Boy that you squished a phone into and made the most awkward phone of all time.
It looked like a honey bun or a taco the shape of it. And as I recall, to change games, you had to take out the battery to swap the game in.
It's a cart swap system. So the N-Gage was very unpopular because it made a horrible phone and a horrible game system.
Yeah.
But it did do both, so it was really ahead of its time.
It did have some exclusive games too, including this. I mean, this version was exclusive.
It was.
And we tell them how you came across it.
Well, I wanted to play this exclusively as my game.
Yes. When he told me that, I was like, "Rrr."
So that's the game I picked, and I informed the world we're going to play N-Gage Civilization. And then I tried to play N-Gage Civilization, and there is not a functioning N-Gage emulator that I'm aware of that I could find.
And I did research as well. I don't think there's one, and there hasn't been one in there. And there was one that was sort of messed with, but that was about the effect of it. It didn't do anything.
And I even said, you know what? N-Gage, how popular can those be? I'll go pick one up if I have to. No siree
they
ball.
Cost a ton.
Plus, how much do you think this game for the N-Gage costs?
Hundreds of dollars.
If you buy it, just the cartridge, you can get it for about $200.
Yeah.
With the box and the manual and the whole thing, you're looking at about $370.
They've got to be exceptionally rare.
And this is not the rarest N-Gage game, but being that it was the last N-Gage game, it makes it a little rare by default. Right. So really, like I said, this was a mesh between Civilization 2 and a little bit of Civilization 1. They were squished together. The graphic style is not the square pieces. It is actually based off the Civilization 2 graphics. But the goals are all the same. All the tech trees are there, mostly. How you win through military or science, all that's still in the game. This packed a ton of game into a little cartridge for the N-Gage. And I have heard that when this was the developer that made this, which was Gryffindale Studios, when this project was over, they were the developers on this were spent. They were done because they had done the impossible basically and crammed all this into this little N-Gage cartridge. Crazy thing to note. For the N-Gage, this was published by Atari.
Yeah, weird.
Which I don't get at all. I don't understand how that is connected at all. But it's just one of those a new trivia fact.
Well, in 2006, this would have been the super duper shell of Atari at that point.
Yeah, and that's what makes it even more confusing, in my opinion.
Well, they were using the name basically, so but it's still odd. Yeah, it's strange.
But this is a huge title.
Well, not when the N-Gage it's not.
No, I agree.
There were no huge ones on there.
So, N-Gage, I'm happy that you got a copy, a version of Civilization that is unique to your platform. I wish I could play you. If anyone ever sees this available in some kind of emulated form, I would love to play it because getting my hands on a new old Civilization game, it just makes me happy.
Yeah.
It makes me happy. You got anything to add to that, Aaron?
No, I don't. But I think we do have a review, a Civ review here. Let me flip over here. I've never actually played an N-Gage personally, but I've seen. Oh,
really?
No, I've never. When would I've had one?
Oh, I have played an N-Gage.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
It was... N-Gage had two different versions.
Yeah.
The first one that they put out that they really pushed hard was absolute crap.
Yeah.
It did nothing. The second version of the N-Gage was okay. It made it an okay gaming system. The controls were well refined. But the phone version of it was still pretty crappy.
Well, Graham W. Vepke had a look at this one as well. From him, I love Civilization. It's a wonderful strategy game where I have spent many hours on my Atari ST during my university years playing, usually as the Babylonians or Aztecs. I like the Babylonians as well. In a race to build your cities and take over the land. I've never played the N-Gage version, and it looks like a cut-down version of Civ 2, which is a game I know a lot of people love on the PC, which I played that one as well. But I prefer the top-down view of the first one rather than the isometric view.
I do.
I can't really give a score here because I've never played the N-Gage version. But it must be a real feat for it to get on a mobile device. I agree with you.
I agree 100%. 100%.
Something else that's a feat, and it's a mobile device, It's the wheel.
Hey.
Now, Brent, tell them what we added this week to the wheel.
I do believe we added point and click.
That's right. Me and Bo covered a point and click this week on the Amigos, and so I'm hungry for. Give me another one.
All right,
Brenny.
All right, here we go.
There she goes, and the winner is the people know before we do.
It looks like we're button mashers.
Button mashers. Now this was another Brent. I know you're a big fan of the button mashers. So it looks like I'm gonna get pummeled this week.
I love button mashers.
Brent is a piston when it comes to button mashers, and so there are plenty of good ones to choose from. And this is a pretty broad topic as well, so I think we'll have a lot of interesting choices here.
Yes.
In the realm of button mashers. So. With that, we leave War Games. Anybody in the chat you want to say hi to before we close this thing down?
We had a pretty big turnout today. We had Picard, Steve, Mohawk Maw, Necronom, Retro Hammer.
Ooh, Retro Hammer.
Graham stopped by. Alec Mold, of course, was in. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Hi, all of you all. And since we are filming on Mother's Day here in the States, a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
That's right. We love our mom, don't we?
We do, 100%.
She had to put up a lot with Brent.
Yeah,
luckily, I was the good son that took care of business for her.
That's all true.
That's true.
I also got hurt a lot in my youth,
and sometimes I was the one hurting.
That's also true.
So sorry about that, eh? So. Next week, button mashers. And until next time,